At 2:17 a.m. on September 18, 2022, Thai maritime police boarded the luxury yacht Golden Mirage, drifting 14 miles off Phuket. The distress call that summoned them had been brief and chaotic. A woman's voice screaming about a stabbing before transmission abruptly ended. Blood trails across imported teak decking led officers to the master suite where Maricel Matapang, a 29-year-old Filipino hotel executive, sat in a blood-soaked evening gown beside the body of one of Asia's wealthiest men. The ornate ceremonial dagger still embedded in Calvin's chest had once been part of his prized collection, artifacts of conquest that now included his own life. Welcome to Crime V, where the darkest truths are revealed. To our incredible viewers and loyal subscribers, thank you for standing by us. Your support means everything. Stay with us as we bring you daily updates on the most chilling true crime stories you can't look away from. And remember, hit that subscribe button. You won't want to miss what's coming next. Maricel Matapang was born in 1993 in Cebu City, Philippines, to middle-class parents, her father Eduardo, an accountant for a shipping company, and her mother Elena, an English teacher. As the eldest of 4 children, Maricel developed responsibility early, balancing care for her siblings with academic excellence. Her childhood friend Jasmine Reyes described her to investigators as focused and determined even as a teenager. While we were dreaming about movie stars, she was researching hotel management programs and practicing her English. She knew exactly where she wanted to go. That clarity of purpose carried her to the University of the Philippines, Cebu, where she graduated with honors in hotel and restaurant management in 2014. Professor Maria Lim later testified that Maricel possessed a rare intuitive understanding of luxury hospitality. She could adapt to different cultural expectations seamlessly, a valuable skill in an industry where guests come from around the world with diverse expectations. After graduation, Maricel accepted an entry-level position at the Peninsula Manila, one of the Philippines' most prestigious hotels. Starting as a front desk associate, she rose to guest relations manager within just 5 years, a position typically requiring a decade of experience. Her former supervisor Antonio Reyes explained her rapid advancement. High-profile guests specifically requested Maricel. She could anticipate needs before they were expressed and solve problems invisibly. That's gold in luxury hospitality. By 2019, while establishing herself professionally, Maricel supported her siblings through university, her brother Paulo studying engineering, her sisters Angelica and Sophia pursuing nursing and business degrees. She sent home at least 30% of her salary every month, her mother Elena recalled. We told her to keep more for herself, but she always said, "My success means nothing if my family can't share it." This combination of ambition and family obligation created the perfect vulnerability for what would follow. A job offer too extraordinary to refuse, yet too perfect to be legitimate. Calvin presented himself as the embodiment of a modern Middle Eastern success story. Born in 1974 to a middle-class Dubai family, he claimed to have built his fortune through strategic investments in the UAE's booming real estate market before expanding into luxury hospitality. His Golden Oasis resort chain became synonymous with opulence catering to the ultra-rich, each property featuring private gaming rooms operating under special jurisdictional arrangements that carefully navigated complex legal restrictions. Industry profiles emphasized his philanthropic work funding schools in developing nations and support for cultural preservation. His public persona combined old-world charm with cosmopolitan sophistication, a man comfortable in both traditional and modern contexts. As Dr. Fatima Rahman, author of Billionaire Facades, explained, Calvin cultivated an image of enlightened wealth. His philanthropy, cultural knowledge, and apparent respect for local traditions created a powerful shield against scrutiny. What few people knew, and what Maricel Matapang would discover too late, was that Calvin's empire rested on elaborate criminal enterprises. The gaming rooms laundered money for international syndicates. Development projects concealed human trafficking operations. Charitable foundations moved illicit funds across borders beyond regulatory oversight. Most disturbing was his pattern with women, a series of personal assistants who appeared briefly in his orbit before vanishing without trace. At least 7 women had disappeared after close association with Calvin between 2016 and 2021. their families receiving substantial wire transfers followed by signed letters claiming they had chosen to start new lives elsewhere. The path that led Maricel into Calfin's deadly orbit began in July 2021, during his stay at the Peninsula Manila while exploring expansion opportunities in the Philippines. As guest relations manager, she was assigned to handle his specific requirements, from room arrangements to local cultural experiences. For 5 days, she coordinated his schedule, arranged meetings with government officials, and ensured every detail met his exacting standards. Unlike many wealthy clients who treat staff as invisible, she later told investigators, "He asked questions about Filipino culture, remembered my name, and seemed genuinely interested in local perspectives." On his 3rd day, Calfin requested that Maricel personally accompany him to a traditional Filipino cultural performance, explaining that he valued her insights for his planned resort in Cebu. The evening remained strictly professional, with Maricel providing cultural context while Calfin asked thoughtful questions about incorporating authentic elements into his development. Before departing Manila, Calfin arranged a private meeting with Maricel in the hotel's executive lounge. What she expected to be a brief thank you became a job offer that would transform and nearly end her life. The proposed position, Cultural Integration Director, came with a salary 5 times her current earnings, an apartment in Dubai during training periods, and executive status within Golden Oasis resorts. Most enticingly, the position would eventually be based in Cebu, allowing her to remain close to family while advancing her career beyond what seemed possible in the Philippines. After 2 weeks of research and family discussions, Maricel accepted the position. Her family celebrated what they saw as divine providence, their prayers for her advancement answered beyond expectation. Her mother's only concern was practical rather than premonitory. "It's so far away. Promise you'll stay in touch every day." That promise would become impossible to keep once Maricel discovered the truth about her employer and his island paradise became her prison. On August 15, 2021, Maricel Matapang boarded a private jet at Manila International Airport, beginning her journey into luxury and ultimate captivity. The Gulfstream G650 with its cream leather interior and onboard chef provided her first taste of the extraordinary wealth that would surround her. The flight attendant, Sophia Kwan, would later become a crucial ally in Maricel's ordeal, but on that first flight, she was simply part of the overwhelming opulence. "I remember thinking this can't be real," Maricel told investigators. "People like me from ordinary families in Cebu don't get private jets and champagne service. But I convinced myself it was just how international executives traveled, that I had earned this through hard work." Landing in Dubai after midnight, Maricel was whisked through a VIP customs channel without normal processing. Her first encounter with Calfin's ability to circumvent official procedures. A chauffeur-driven Bentley delivered her to the Golden Oasis Dubai, where the presidential suite had been prepared as her temporary residence. The following morning brought her first glimpse of the corporate headquarters occupying 3 floors of a gleaming tower in Dubai's financial district. The offices projected legitimate success. Awards displayed in glass cases, scale models of current and planned properties. Teams of professionals from diverse backgrounds working in open-concept spaces designed by renowned architects. Calfin himself appeared midweek, arriving with the casual confidence of someone accustomed to immediate deference. In person, his charisma was more apparent than in their Manila interactions. A magnetic presence combining intellectual sharpness with old-world courtesy. He spoke 5 languages fluently, quoted literature and philosophy in conversation, and demonstrated detailed knowledge of Filipino history that impressed Maricel. During her 2nd week, she began substantive work on the Cebu Resort project, reviewing design concepts for cultural authenticity, developing staff training programs on Filipino customs, and creating guest experiences that would distinguish the property from conventional luxury resorts. This meaningful professional engagement disarmed any lingering reservations, as the work itself was exactly what she had hoped for: challenging, creative, and respectful of her expertise. By her 3rd week in Dubai, Maricel had been installed in a luxury apartment in the exclusive Dubai Marina district, a 2-bedroom residence with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the Persian Gulf, furnished with designer pieces and equipped with every imaginable amenity. The apartment came with housekeeping service, a personal concierge, and a dedicated car and driver available 24 hours a day. The gradual elevation was masterful in retrospect, Dr. Rahman explained. She was systematically moved from normal life to extraordinary luxury through incremental steps that prevented any single moment from triggering alarm. It's classic grooming behavior, but executed with corporate resources rather than just personal manipulation. The transition from professional to personal relationship followed a similarly calculated progression. Calvin's initial interactions remained strictly business, but subtle shifts began appearing as Maricel's second month began. First came the gifts, a designer handbag to thank her for exceptional work on the Cultural Authenticity Report, then a rare book on Filipino tribal art that made me think of your passion for cultural preservation. Dinner invitations became more private, meetings to discuss confidential aspects of the Cebu project in Calvin's penthouse rather than corporate dining rooms. The conversations during these evenings would begin with legitimate business matters before gradually incorporating personal elements, childhood stories, family backgrounds, philosophical perspectives. He was a masterful listener, Maricel recalled. He remembered everything I said about my family, my dreams, my values. He mirrored those values back to me, presenting himself as someone who shared my deepest convictions. By October 2021, Calvin had created the illusion of profound connection. Their first physical contact came during a sunset yacht cruise to celebrate project milestones. A moment when reviewing architectural drawings led to hands touching, followed by Calvin asking permission to kiss her with old-fashioned formality that seemed respectful rather than calculated. The romance accelerated from that point, though Calvin maintained what appeared to be respectful restraint. He spoke of serious intentions while allowing the relationship to develop gradually. He arranged video calls with his teenage children from a previous marriage, creating the impression of integrating Maricel into his family life. Throughout this period, Maricel maintained regular contact with her family, sharing her professional success and gradually revealing the developing relationship. "We were happy for her," Elena Matapang later told investigators. She sent videos of their dates, opera performances, desert excursions, elegant restaurants. He seemed cultured and kind. "We thought she had found her fairy tale." The critical turning point came in December 2021, when Calvin invited Maricel to spend Christmas week at his private island in Thailand, a secluded paradise he called Haven. The invitation included bringing Sophia as her personal attendant to ensure proper propriety, a gesture that seemed to demonstrate honorable intentions while actually serving as part of the careful manipulation. Haven was breathtaking, Maricel described in her statement, a 20-acre island with white sand beaches, tropical gardens, and a main residence that combined Thai architectural elements with modern luxury. It felt like the most exclusive resort imaginable, with a staff of 12 catering to just the three of us. What she didn't recognize were the island's sinister features: comprehensive surveillance systems disguised as smart home technology, security personnel presenting as groundskeepers and household staff, sophisticated perimeter monitoring that made unauthorized departure impossible. The paradise was designed as a beautiful cage, its security features hidden behind luxury. This first visit established Haven as a place of romance and exclusivity rather than revealing its true purpose as an isolated prison where Calvin had previously held women who discovered too much about his operations. During those enchanted days, Calvin cemented Maricel's emotional attachment through experiences carefully crafted to deepen intimacy. Private dinners on torchlit beaches, snorkeling in crystal waters, evening conversations beneath stars undiminished by city lights. "By the time we returned to Dubai, I was deeply in love," she admitted. "I believed we were building something meaningful together, a relationship that combined professional collaboration with personal connection." In January 2022, Maricel's position shifted to include coordinating between various Golden Oasis properties, requiring travel with Calvin to Singapore, Macau, and Bahrain. These trips served dual purposes: deepening her professional integration while systematically separating her from independent connections outside Calvin's sphere of influence. Each property visit followed similar patterns. During daylight hours, Maricel participated in legitimate business operations. But evenings increasingly involved accompanying Calvin to private gaming rooms where she began noticing patterns that would eventually reveal the criminal foundations of his empire. The same guests appeared at different properties, moving large amounts of cash between games. Financial transactions occurred in private rooms without normal documentation. Staff spoke in coded language about special accommodations for certain clients. These observations accumulated gradually, each seeming possibly irregular but not definitively criminal when viewed in isolation. Calvin carefully managed her exposure, always providing plausible explanations for anything that raised questions. Cultural differences, VIP customer preferences, competitive business practices. Throughout this period, Calvin continued deepening their personal relationship through increasingly significant gestures, introducing Maricel as his partner at business functions, consulting her on family matters, discussing potential marriage in hypothetical terms. Her integration into his life seemed complete when he added her to certain company accounts for practical purposes when traveling together. Financial entanglement that would later be used to suggest her complicity in criminal enterprises. By April 2022, Maricel had been fully incorporated into Calvin's public life, accompanying him to charity galas, industry events, and social functions with political figures across Southeast Asia. To outside observers, she appeared to be the consort of a successful businessman, enjoying extraordinary privilege while contributing professional expertise to his operations. What no one recognized. Not her family watching from Cebu, not former colleagues seeing her social media posts, not even Maricel herself, was that the golden cage had already closed around her. The path to discovering the truth and her desperate final escape was about to begin, leading to the bloody scene aboard the Golden Mirage that would eventually expose Calvin's crimes to the world. The turning point in Maricel's gilded captivity came on May 3, 2022. Calvin had departed for a 3-day business trip to Monaco, leaving her with access to his Dubai penthouse office to finalize cultural programming documents for the Cebu resort. The project was nearing its investment phase, with groundbreaking scheduled for September. Working late into the evening, Maricel needed reference materials from Calvin's personal library adjacent to his office, a space she had entered only in his presence before. "It was the first time I'd been alone in that part of the penthouse," she later testified. "I needed specific information on Filipino indigenous art that I knew was in a book he'd shown me previously. While searching the shelves, she accidentally triggered a hidden mechanism that revealed a concealed safe behind a rotating bookcase panel. The safe door stood partially open, a critical lapse in Calvin's otherwise meticulous security protocols. Inside, an external hard drive caught her attention, labeled simply, Private, 2021. "I knew I shouldn't look," Maricel told investigators, "but by then, I'd noticed enough inconsistencies in his business operations that curiosity overcame caution. That decision changed everything, and nearly cost me my life." Using her authorized credentials on Calvin's computer system, Maricel accessed the hard drive's contents. What she discovered shattered every illusion she had about the man she believed she loved. Organized in clinical precision were financial records documenting extensive money laundering operations through the Golden Oasis properties. Spreadsheets tracked cash flows from known criminal enterprises in Russia, Myanmar, and Colombia, detailing how funds were cleaned through the casino operations before emerging as legitimate business profits. Most disturbing were files labeled Special Import, Export, documentation of human trafficking operations disguised as staff recruitment for resorts. Young women from impoverished regions of Southeast Asia, Eastern Europe, and South America had been transported under the pretense of hospitality training, then funneled into exploitation in private establishments across the Middle East and Asia. The scope was staggering, recalled Detective Priya Naran of Interpol's Human Trafficking Division, who later analyzed the evidence. Calvin wasn't merely connected to these networks. He was a primary facilitator, using his legitimate business infrastructure to move both money and people across international boundaries with minimal scrutiny. As Maricel continued exploring the hard drive, she discovered a folder labeled Personnel, Special Handling. Opening it revealed profiles of 7 women, all former employees, all attractive professionals in their 20s or early 30s. Each file contained comprehensive surveillance reports, psychological assessments, and a final status notation, terminated. Attached to each were wire transfer records to family members and identical form letters, announcing the woman's decision to pursue new opportunities abroad. The final file in the sequence bore the name Matapang Maricel, her own dossier, containing surveillance reports dating back to her time at the Peninsula Manila, detailed assessments of her family's financial vulnerabilities, and psychological profiles identifying her as an optimal candidate for integration. The file included a notation, status, active/advancing. I remember feeling physically ill, Maricel recounted. Everything, our meeting, the job offer, the romance, had been calculated. I was just the latest in a pattern, and the others had disappeared. Her immediate instinct was to flee, to gather essentials and seek protection at the Philippine embassy. Yet practical obstacles immediately presented themselves. Her passport was secured in Calvin's main safe. Her finances were entangled with his through joint accounts. The apartment where she lived was owned by his company. Even her mobile phone operated on his corporate account, likely monitored and tracked. Most critically, her family in Cebu had recently moved into a home purchased through a special financing arrangement Calvin had organized as a gift to her family, creating both physical and financial vulnerability for her parents and siblings. Recognizing her precarious position, Maricel made the fateful decision to feign ignorance while secretly gathering evidence and planning escape. She carefully returned the hard drive to its exact position in the safe, restored the bookcase panel, and continued her assigned work as if nothing had happened. When Calvin returned from Monaco 2 days later, Maricel presented a master study in acting, maintaining her affectionate demeanor while concealing her horror at his true nature. Her performance proved convincing enough that Calvin detected no change in their relationship, a testament to both her desperate self-control and his narcissistic blindness. People like Calvin typically can't conceive that their manipulations might be discovered, explained Dr. Annika Sorensen, forensic psychologist who later evaluated him. Their belief in their own superiority creates a vulnerability, the inability to recognize when their victims begin seeing through the facade. Over the following week, Maricel methodically documented what she could access without raising suspicion, photographing key documents with a personal camera purchased with cash to avoid digital footprints. She researched escape options during brief periods when surveillance might be minimized. She made cautious inquiries about private travel options, framing them as research for a surprise anniversary trip she was planning. Most importantly, she established covert contact with Sophia Kwan, the flight attendant she had befriended, who had also begun questioning certain patterns in Calvin's operations. Using brief bathroom conversations during social events and notes passed during seemingly casual interactions, the two women confirmed their shared suspicions and established rudimentary communication channels. On May 15th, just as Maricel was formulating an escape plan that might protect both herself and her family, Calvin announced they would be spending the coming weekend at Haven, a routine trip that suddenly carried ominous implications in light of her discoveries. Her requests to postpone due to project deadlines were smoothly overridden, with Calvin insisting the break would refresh her creativity. The journey to Haven proceeded like their previous visits. Private jet to Phuket, helicopter transfer to the island, seamless luxury throughout. Yet for Maricel, every aspect now appeared sinister rather than splendid. The isolation that had once seemed romantic now represented imprisonment. The staff she had viewed as attentive service providers now registered as potential guards. The electronic systems that controlled everything from climate to entertainment now revealed themselves as sophisticated surveillance and security infrastructure. I was seeing Haven's true purpose for the first time, she testified. It wasn't a paradise retreat. It was a beautiful prison, designed for containing people who knew too much until they could be permanently silenced. Calvin's behavior during this visit differed subtly from previous trips. He was more attentive, more physically demonstrative, yet his eyes watched her with new intensity. His questions about her recent activities carried casual tones but probed for inconsistencies. Technology that had previously remained in background use, phones, tablets, laptops, now seemed conspicuously absent from communal spaces. On the second evening, during dinner on the villa's terrace overlooking the Andaman Sea, Calvin casually mentioned receiving alert notifications from his home security system. "Someone accessed my private office while I was in Monaco," he remarked, studying her reaction over his wine glass. "The system logs everything, of course." Maricel's hospitality training provided the performance of her life, a perfect blend of surprise, mild concern, and innocent questions about potential staff intrusions. Internally, her heart raced with the realization that her discovery had not gone undetected, but her expression and voice betrayed nothing. "Have you identified who it was?" she asked, taking a deliberate sip of water to control her trembling hands. "Not yet," Calvin replied, his eyes never leaving her face. "But I will. I always do." That night, Maricel awoke at 2 a.m. to find Calvin's side of the bed empty. Carefully moving to the bedroom doorway, she overheard his voice from the villa's security room, speaking in Arabic to an unknown party. Though she couldn't understand the language, the cold tone required no translation. When he returned to bed 30 minutes later, she feigned sleep while her mind raced through increasingly desperate scenarios. By morning, Maricel understood she had become a prisoner, though the cage remained gilded. Calvin announced a change of plans. They would be extending their stay on Haven indefinitely, as he could manage operations remotely. Her protests about pending project deadlines were dismissed with the information that her team had already been instructed to proceed without her temporary input. Over the following days, the pretense of a romantic retreat gradually dissolved. Calvin spent hours in video conferences, leaving Maricel to the watchful attention of staff who now made no effort to disguise their security function. Her requests to return to Dubai for essential meetings were deflected with increasing firmness. Her mobile phone mysteriously malfunctioned, replaced with a device that contained only applications and contacts Calvin approved. The transition from guest to prisoner was executed with the same incremental precision as my initial recruitment, Maricel observed. Each day brought another small restriction, another freedom quietly removed, until I was fully contained without a single explicit threat being voiced. 2 weeks into this indefinite vacation, Calvin's behavior shifted from monitoring to interrogation. During an elegant dinner prepared by Haven's private chef, he casually displayed a tablet showing security footage of Maricel in his office, clearly accessing the hidden safe. "I've always admired your intelligence," he said, his voice maintaining its cultured calm while his eyes hardened. "Now I need to understand exactly what you saw, what you've done with that information, and who you've told." For 3 hours, Calvin questioned her in the calculated manner that had built his empire, alternating between threats and offers of understanding, between rage and reasonable discussion. Maricel, recognizing survival required partial honesty, admitted discovering the financial records but claimed limited comprehension of their significance. She denied copying information or contacting authorities, insisting her only reaction had been confusion and an intention to ask him directly when the moment seemed appropriate. Whether Calvin believed her partial confession or simply recognized the tactical advantage of appearing to accept it remained unclear. By evening's end, he had established new parameters for their relationship. Maricel would remain on Haven indefinitely under enhanced security protocols. She would continue limited work on the Cebu project remotely. She would maintain regular video calls with her family under supervision, assuring them everything was wonderful. In return, her family would remain safe in their new home, continuing to receive the financial support they had grown dependent upon. "Your cooperation ensures everyone benefits," Calvin explained, as if outlining a reasonable business arrangement rather than imprisonment. "Defiance would have consequences beyond yourself." The months that followed transformed Haven from paradise to psychological torture chamber. Maricel's living space was restricted to designated areas of the main villa complex. Her communications were monitored, her movements tracked through the island's comprehensive surveillance system. Staff who had previously treated her as Calvin's partner now functioned as prison guards, their politeness barely masking their watchfulness. Calvin maintained the facade of their relationship during his frequent visits to the island, expecting Maricel to perform as the loving partner when others were present. During private moments, however, his true perspective emerged. She had become a liability to be contained, an asset to be utilized when convenient, and a problem eventually requiring permanent solution. He spoke about his previous assistants during unguarded moments, Maricel recalled, how they had ultimately proved disappointing after showing such initial promise, how business sometimes required difficult personnel decisions. The message was always clear without being explicit. My time was limited. Throughout this period of captivity, Maricel maintained two parallel performances, outward compliance masking internal resistance. She played her assigned role perfectly while secretly documenting everything she observed. She used her limited computer access for approved work while finding creative methods to store evidence in seemingly innocent files. She cultivated carefully calculated trust with certain staff members, identifying potential weaknesses in the security apparatus. Most importantly, she established covert communication with Sophia Kwan during the flight attendants' periodic visits to Haven with Calvin. Using everything from lipstick messages on bathroom mirrors to notes hidden in clothing to be laundered, the women exchanged critical information and gradually developed a framework for potential escape. By August 2022, Maricel had compiled comprehensive evidence of Calvin's criminal operations, identified the island's security vulnerabilities, and coordinated preliminary escape arrangements with Sophia. What she lacked was a viable window of opportunity, a moment when security might be sufficiently compromised to attempt escape without endangering herself or her family. That opportunity would arrive unexpectedly through Calvin's own vanity and the approach of his 50th birthday in September. Always inclined toward grandiose displays, he planned an elaborate celebration aboard his super yacht Golden Mirage, a 3-day cruise through Thailand's iconic islands with select business associates and their partners. Maricel would attend as the devoted companion, maintaining the illusion of their perfect relationship before the assembled guests. The event presented both opportunity and elevated risk. Movement from Haven to the yacht would require transitions between security systems, brief moments when surveillance might have gaps. The presence of guests would necessitate less obvious security protocols. Yet failure would almost certainly eliminate any future escape possibilities, and the open sea offered its own containment challenges. It was my only realistic chance, Maricel later explained to prosecutors. I understood I might be trading one prison for another or worse, but continuing as his captive meant eventual death once my usefulness ended. The birthday celebration at least offered possibility, however desperate. As September approached, Maricel's psychological condition deteriorated visibly. Weight loss, insomnia, and anxiety manifested physically despite her efforts to conceal them. Rather than raising Calvin's suspicions, however, these changes aligned with his expectations for someone in extended captivity. He interpreted her declining health as evidence of submission rather than desperate determination. Controlling personalities often mistake trauma responses for acceptance, Dr. Sorensen noted in her assessment. Ms. Matapang's visible suffering actually enhanced her credibility in Mr. Calvin's eyes. He believed he was witnessing her spirit breaking, when in fact she was channeling all her remaining strength toward survival. On September 15th, 2 days before the birthday cruise, Calvin arrived at Haven with Sophia and several staff members to prepare for the celebration. Final arrangements were confirmed, guest accommodations prepared aboard the yacht, and entertainment coordinated. Throughout these preparations, Maricel performed her assigned role flawlessly, the supportive partner eager to ensure Calvin's special occasion met his exacting standards. During a brief moment alone with Sophia while selecting appropriate evening wear, Maricel received confirmation of their escape framework. A satellite phone would be hidden in the yacht's secondary guest bathroom. Security rotations would leave a 7-minute window during the second evening's dinner service, and a contact in the Thai Maritime Police had been established through Sophia's brother. What neither woman could anticipate was how dramatically their careful plans would collapse, transforming an intended escape into a desperate act of survival that would end with Calvin's blood staining the imported teak decks of his prized vessel. The Golden Mirage departed Phuket's exclusive AO Pagran Marina on the evening of September 16, 2022, with 18 passengers and 22 crew members aboard. At 279 feet, the custom-built superyacht represented the pinnacle of maritime luxury, featuring a helipad, infinity pool, cinema, and multiple entertaining spaces distributed across 6 decks. For the assembled guests, mainly business associates involved in Calfin's legitimate operations, the vessel provided the perfect setting for a milestone birthday celebration. For Maricel, however, the yacht represented both opportunity and deadly peril. Surrounded by water, with limited means of communication and escape, she found herself in what maritime security expert Captain James Harrington would later describe as a floating jurisdictional nightmare. International waters, foreign registry, multinational passengers and crew, and no immediate access to authorities. During the first day at sea, Maricel maintained her performance as the devoted partner while mentally mapping the vessel's layout, security camera positions, and crew rotation schedules. The morning and afternoon proceeded according to Calfin's meticulously planned itinerary: champagne breakfast, scenic cruising past limestone karsts, water sports from the yacht's beach club platform, and casual luxury throughout. Calfin's security measures were subtly integrated into the experience, Maricel recalled. To guests, the staff appeared to be providing 7-star service. But I recognized certain crew members as security personnel monitoring movements, conversations, and particularly my own activities. That evening featured a formal welcome dinner in the yacht's main salon, with Calfin presiding over the gathering with practiced charm. Maricel, seated at his right hand in a designer gown selected specifically for the occasion, presented the perfect image of supportive partner while calculating her diminishing options. The satellite phone Sophia had promised remained inaccessible, the planned bathroom location apparently compromised after Maricel observed a security sweep of guest areas earlier in the day. Following dinner, as guests enjoyed an exclusive musical performance on the main deck, Calfin drew Maricel aside to a private seating area. His demeanor remained pleasant, his voice conversational, but his words confirmed her worst fears. "You've been very convincing," he said quietly. "But we both know this performance ends after my celebration. I've made arrangements for your family's continued comfort. They'll never want for anything. That should provide some consolation." The clinical detachment with which he referenced her planned disappearance triggered something unexpected in Maricel. Not panic but clarity. In that moment, she realized her carefully coordinated escape plan had become irrelevant. Survival would require immediate action, whatever the consequences. "I remember feeling an unusual calm," she later testified. "The uncertainty was gone. I understood precisely what I was facing and what I needed to do." For the remainder of the evening, Maricel maintained her role with renewed conviction, her internal focus now entirely on creating opportunity rather than following the compromised plan. When Calfin proudly gave guests a tour of his private collection of historical artifacts displayed in the yacht's library, she noted with particular interest a 14th-century ceremonial dagger from Persia, an ornate weapon with a jeweled hilt and distinctive curved blade, displayed prominently in a glass case with minimal security features. That night, as Calfin slept in their suite, Maricel systematically reviewed her options. The yacht would be anchored the following day in a secluded bay for Calfin's birthday celebration. Security would be focused primarily on monitoring the multiple guests and managing the elaborate event. The evening would feature significant alcohol consumption and entertainment distractions. Most importantly, she identified a potential 15-minute window during the scheduled fireworks display when attention would be directed skyward rather than on passenger movements. By morning, Maricel had formulated a desperate plan requiring precise timing and calculated risk. With no guarantee of success and no margin for error, she prepared herself mentally for the possibility that survival might require violence, a scenario her previous escape planning had specifically sought to avoid. September 17th, Calfin's actual birthday, dawned with perfect weather, clear skies, gentle breezes, and calm seas providing an appropriate backdrop for the day's celebrations. The yacht anchored in a picturesque bay surrounded by uninhabited islands, the isolation creating a private paradise for the exclusive gathering. Throughout the day, Maricel participated in scheduled activities with manufactured enthusiasm: morning yoga on the sun deck, a champagne brunch featuring Calfin's favorite dishes, afternoon jet ski excursions around the bay. She maintained constant awareness of security positions, noting with interest that several team members had relaxed their vigilance amid the festive atmosphere. As evening approached, guests returned to their cabins to prepare for the formal birthday dinner scheduled for 8 p.m. During this preparation period, Maricel executed the first phase of her plan, feigning a migraine to delay her own preparation, then using the brief privacy to access Calvin's personal safe using the combination she had memorized during their time together. From it, she retrieved her passport, emergency cash, and a small data drive containing evidence she had accumulated during captivity. Those documents were essential not just for potential prosecution, but for protecting my family afterward, she explained. Without evidence of the broader criminal network, they would remain vulnerable even if I somehow escaped. The birthday dinner represented Calvin at his most megalomaniacal. A 7-course meal featuring rare delicacies from around the world, vintage wines costing thousands per bottle, and constant tributes from assembled guests highlighting his business acumen and generosity. Maricel, seated again at his right hand, offered her own carefully crafted toast that guests perceived as deeply romantic, while Calvin alone recognized the dual meaning in her references to finally breaking free of conventional limitations. At 10:30 p.m., as planned, the evening culminated with a spectacular fireworks display launched from a separate support vessel positioned several hundred meters from the yacht. As all attention turned skyward, Maricel executed her final desperate gambit. Excusing herself during the display's early sequence, she moved quickly to the library and removed the Persian dagger from its case, concealing it in the folds of her evening gown. She then proceeded to the communication center on the bridge deck, where she had earlier observed minimal staffing during the celebration. Her intention was simple but dangerous. Use the ship's radio to issue a distress call with their coordinates, creating an official record and potential response before attempting to leave the vessel via one of the emergency life rafts during continued celebration chaos. What Maricel couldn't anticipate was Calvin's own security protocol, his personal monitoring of certain vessel systems from a tablet he carried, including bridge activity sensors. As she entered the communication center, Calvin was already moving to intercept her, having noted the unauthorized access alert. Their confrontation in the narrow corridor outside the bridge occurred away from guest areas, witnesses, or camera coverage, a security blind spot that would prove fatal for Calvin. He was calm at first, Maricel recounted during her subsequent statement. He simply said, "So this is your choice," as if we were discussing a business decision. When he saw the dagger in my hand, he actually smiled, as if my resistance amused him. That's when he reached for me. The struggle between Calvin and Maricel Matapang lasted less than 90 seconds, according to forensic analysis, yet within that brief span, the power dynamic that had defined their relationship fundamentally reversed. Calvin, accustomed to absolute control, reached for Maricel's throat with practiced precision. A movement suggesting this was not his first act of physical dominance. His superior size and strength should have guaranteed swift submission. What he failed to account for was Maricel's desperate determination and the ceremonial dagger now clutched in her right hand. It wasn't a calculated attack, Maricel later explained to Thai investigators. When he began choking me, survival instinct took over. I swung the dagger without aiming, without planning, my body acting before my mind could process what was happening. The first strike caught Calvin in the shoulder, a glancing blow that tore his custom tuxedo and opened a superficial wound. His grip loosened momentarily in surprise rather than pain, providing Maricel crucial seconds to twist away. As he lunged toward her again, the narrow corridor limiting his movement, she struck a second time, the ornate blade finding devastating purchase between his ribs, penetrating his left lung. His expression changed from anger to disbelief, Maricel recalled. He looked at me as if I'd violated some fundamental rule of our universe, that I, the controlled, could harm him, the controller. Blood immediately soaked Calvin's white dress shirt as he staggered backward, the dagger still embedded in his chest. Medical experts would later testify that this wound alone might not have proven fatal with immediate treatment. What sealed Calvin's fate was his instinctive reaction, reaching to remove the foreign object, an action that accelerated blood loss and led to rapid respiratory compromise. Never remove an embedded object from a penetrating trauma, explained Dr. Mitra Ramesh, who reviewed the autopsy findings. It's actually performing a sealing function, limiting hemorrhage. Removing it creates unrestricted bleeding and, in this case, allowed air to enter the pleural space, causing lung collapse. As Calvin slumped against the corridor wall, sliding slowly to the floor, Maricel faced a critical decision. Attempt to help the man who had planned her disappearance or continue her escape while opportunity remained. With the sounds of celebration still audible from the main deck, she chose survival, moving quickly past Calvin's weakening form toward the bridge. Inside the communication center, Maricel found a single crew member, the night communications officer who had stepped away from his station to observe the fireworks through a nearby window. His momentary dereliction created the narrow window Maricel needed. Before he could fully register her presence or Calvin's absence, she grabbed a heavy crystal paperweight from the console, another of Calvin's ostentatious decorative touches, and struck the man at the base of his skull, rendering him unconscious. With trained efficiency developed through months observing yacht operations, Maricel located the emergency radio channel and transmitted a deliberate distress call. Mayday, mayday, mayday. This is yacht Golden Mirage. Assault and stabbing on board. Request immediate assistance. Position. She provided the coordinates displayed on the navigation system, adding deliberately, female hostage situation. Criminal trafficking evidence aboard. The carefully chosen wording was designed to ensure maximum response and immediate documentation of her status as victim rather than aggressor, a critical distinction for what would follow. Maritime authorities would later note that the transmission's specificity suggested premeditation rather than panic, though Maricel would maintain she formulated the message in the moment. Having created official record of her position and circumstances, Maricel's next actions focused on securing evidence that would protect both herself and her family after escape. She downloaded navigation logs showing the yacht's previous destinations, including Haven Island, which appeared on no official maritime charts. She photographed communications records documenting contact with known criminal enterprises. Most crucially, she located and secured a satellite phone from the bridge emergency kit, providing means of communication independent of Calvin's controlled systems. By this point, approximately 4 minutes had elapsed since the initial confrontation. Blood trail analysis would later show that Calvin had attempted to follow Maricel to the bridge, managing several steps before cardiovascular collapse forced him to the floor. The medical examiner estimated he remained conscious for approximately 6 minutes after the stabbing, though progressively incapacitated by blood loss and respiratory failure. Returning to the corridor, Maricel found Calvin still alive but grievously wounded, blood pooling beneath him on the imported teak decking. In what investigators would later identify as a crucial moment defining her intent, she knelt briefly beside him. "I could claim I tried to help him," she testified, "but the truth is I checked whether he could still threaten me. When I saw the extent of his injury, I told him his crimes would be exposed now. He couldn't speak, but his eyes registered understanding. That was the only justice his previous victims would ever receive, knowing he died with his secrets exposed." With fireworks still illuminating the night sky and celebration continuing on the main deck, Maricel executed the final phase of her improvised escape. Rather than attempting to reach a life raft as originally planned, an action that would leave her vulnerable in open water with uncertain rescue prospects, she determined to maintain control of the vessel until authorities responded to her distress call. Moving to the master suite, she quickly changed from her evening gown into practical clothing, gathering her passport, evidence, and emergency cash. She then proceeded systematically through the yacht, securing potential weapons and communications devices to prevent security personnel from coordinating once they discovered Calvin's condition. This methodical approach, rather than immediate flight, would later be presented by prosecutors as evidence of calculation inconsistent with self-defense. Maricel's attorneys successfully countered that her actions demonstrated not premeditated violence, but the survival instincts of someone facing imminent threat after months of captivity and psychological trauma. Ms. Matapang did what kidnapping victims are trained to do if opportunity arises, testified Dr. Lauren McKenzie, expert in captivity trauma. Neutralize the immediate threat, create evidence of your situation, secure means of communication, and control your environment until rescue arrives. Her actions were textbook survival strategy, not criminal calculation. By the time fireworks concluded and guests began dispersing from the main deck, approximately 20 minutes had elapsed since the stabbing. It was Sophia Kwan who first encountered Maricel in the main salon, immediately recognizing from her changed clothing and intense expression that their planned escape had been accelerated. "It's happened," Maricel said simply. "He's dead or dying. I've called for help." The women moved quickly to isolate key security personnel by reporting simultaneous medical emergencies in different locations, dispersing Calfin's protection team throughout the vessel. This created critical minutes to barricade themselves in the master suite with the satellite phone, where Sophia made direct contact with her brother in the Thai Maritime Police, confirming the distress call and providing additional details about the vessel's security capabilities. At approximately 11:17 p.m., Calfin's head of security discovered his employer's body in the corridor outside the bridge. By then, Maricel and Sophia had established communication with approaching authorities and secured their position. The security team's subsequent attempts to breach the master suite were handicapped by concern for other guests' safety and uncertainty about what had actually transpired. At 11:47 p.m., the first Thai Maritime Police vessel reached the Golden Mirage, followed quickly by additional response craft. The initial boarding party found a chaotic scene. Guests confined to cabins by security personnel, crew members providing contradictory accounts of events, and Calfin's body, now deceased, under guard in the medical bay where unsuccessful resuscitation attempts had been made. Maricel and Sophia surrendered voluntarily to boarding officers, immediately presenting the evidence drive and requesting protective custody. The decisive moment came when Lieutenant Narong Kwan, Sophia's brother, conducted preliminary questioning and recognized the magnitude of the trafficking evidence Maricel had secured. His decision to treat her as a victim witness rather than murder suspect shaped the subsequent investigation's direction. By dawn on September 18th, the Golden Mirage had been officially designated a crime scene, with all passengers and crew isolated for questioning. Maricel, though technically in custody, received medical treatment for bruising around her neck and trauma-informed interviewing protocols rather than hostile interrogation. The evidence she had gathered was entered into official record, with copies transmitted to Interpol and relevant national authorities. The yacht itself became the focus of intensive forensic examination, revealing far more than Calfin's criminal enterprises or the circumstances of his death. Hidden compartments contained financial records documenting decades of money laundering operations. Server data revealed surveillance of government officials for blackmail purposes. Most disturbing were medical records detailing the fate of the terminated women from Calfin's personnel files, not murdered as Maricel had feared, but surgically altered and trafficked to private buyers through channels disguised as exclusive medical tourism facilities. The Golden Mirage wasn't just a luxury vessel, noted Interpol Financial Crimes Director Jean-Paul Moreau in his subsequent assessment. It functioned as a mobile criminal headquarters, allowing Calfin to conduct operations in international waters beyond jurisdictional reach. The evidence recovered from one night aboard this vessel unraveled criminal networks spanning 3 continents. For Maricel Matapang, the aftermath of that fatal confrontation in a yacht corridor would prove more complex and challenging than even survival aboard the Golden Mirage had been. Though physically free, she entered a labyrinth of legal proceedings, media scrutiny, and psychological recovery that would consume the next 18 months of her life. The immediate legal question, whether killing Calfin constituted justified self-defense or criminal homicide, involved jurisdictional complexity unprecedented in Thai maritime law. The incident occurred in Thai territorial waters aboard a Cayman Islands-flagged vessel owned by a Dubai national corporation. The accused was a Philippine citizen who claimed status as a trafficking victim, rather than willing companion. International treaties, conflicting legal standards, and diplomatic pressures from multiple governments complicated every procedural decision. "I've never encountered a case with this many competing legal frameworks," admitted prosecutor Somchai Vikhit during preliminary hearings. "We're simultaneously addressing maritime law, human trafficking protocols, self-defense standards across multiple jurisdictions, and evidence of transnational criminal enterprise." The first decisive ruling came 30 days after Calvin's death, when Thai courts determined they held primary jurisdiction over the homicide investigation while sharing jurisdiction over the criminal enterprise evidence with international authorities. This decision kept Maricel in Thailand under court supervision, neither fully free nor traditionally imprisoned, but residing under monitored conditions in a secured apartment while proceedings continued. Throughout the investigation, Maricel's legal position strengthened as forensic evidence consistently supported her account. Autopsy findings confirmed defensive wounds on her neck matching her testimony. Blood spatter analysis established the confrontation occurred as she described. Most significantly, DNA evidence recovered from Haven Island, raided by Thai special forces based on coordinates Maricel provided, confirmed the presence of previously missing women, supporting her claims about Calvin's pattern of captivity. The prosecution's case suffered further setbacks when multiple women came forward with accounts of similar experiences in Calvin's orbit, recruitment, manipulation, and various stages of controlled captivity they had managed to escape before reaching the termination phase Maricel had discovered in his files. Their testimony established clear pattern evidence supporting her reasonable fear of imminent harm. Each woman described the same progression, noted Dr. Sorensen in expert testimony. Initial professional opportunity, followed by romantic manipulation, followed by increasing isolation and control. The consistency across witnesses from different countries, cultures, and time periods demonstrates not coincidence but methodology. Mr. Calvin's established predatory pattern. By February 2023, international dimensions of the case had expanded dramatically. Evidence from the Golden Mirage triggered investigations across 17 countries, freezing of assets worth billions of dollars, and indictments against 43 individuals connected to Calvin's criminal network. The scope of these revelations transformed public perception of the case from isolated homicide to systematic criminal exposure. On March 15, 2023, in a decision that acknowledged legal precedent while creating new framework for similar cases, the Thai Special Criminal Court ruled that Maricel's actions constituted justified self-defense under extraordinary duress. The ruling specifically cited reasonable fear of imminent fatal harm based on documented pattern of disappearances and proportional force against an aggressor with demonstrated history of violence. While this decision resolved the homicide charges, Maricel's legal challenges continued. The Philippine government sought her immediate repatriation as a trafficking victim, while UAE authorities filed extradition requests alleging financial crimes related to her access to Calvin's accounts during their relationship. International human rights organizations advocated for her protected status, arguing that returning her to either country could expose her to retribution from remaining elements of Calvin's network. Throughout this period, Maricel's family in Cebu required comprehensive security protection, relocated multiple times as threats emerged from various sources. The home Calvin had gifted them was revealed to contain extensive surveillance equipment monitoring all activities. Financial investigation discovered that the special financing arrangement had actually placed the family in debt bondage rather than homeownership, creating vulnerability Calvin could exploit if Maricel attempted escape. He never gave anything without creating control, Maricel observed during a rare interview granted to the International Trafficking Survivors Coalition. Even his apparent generosity was designed to create leverage, making my family simultaneously grateful to him and dependent on him. It was sophisticated psychological imprisonment extending beyond physical confinement. In July 2023, following classified diplomatic negotiations between Thai, Philippine, and UAE governments, Maricel was granted protected witness status under joint international protocols. This unprecedented arrangement provided specialized security, identity protection measures, and relocation assistance for both Maricel and her family. In exchange, she agreed to continue cooperating with ongoing prosecutions of Calvin's associates across multiple jurisdictions. Ms. Matapang's testimony has proven essential to dismantling one of the most sophisticated criminal enterprises we've encountered, explained Interpol Secretary General Victor Naranjo. The evidence she secured during captivity and escape has provided unprecedented insight into how legitimate business infrastructure can be weaponized for transnational criminal activity. For Maricel herself, Legal vindication represented only the beginning of a longer recovery journey. Extensive psychological assessment diagnosed her with complex post-traumatic stress disorder resulting from prolonged captivity, coercive control, and the violent culmination aboard the Golden Mirage. Beyond physical freedom, she faced the challenge of rebuilding her sense of safety, autonomy, and identity after months of systematic manipulation. The psychological effects of high-control relationships persist long after physical liberation, explained Dr. Elena Vasquez, Maricel's trauma specialist. When someone has methodically distorted your reality, regulated your behavior, and threatened your existence, simply removing the controller doesn't immediately restore normal functioning. Recovery requires reconstituting your understanding of safety and self. Throughout therapy, Maricel processed not only her traumatic captivity but her responsibility for Calvin's death, a complex emotional burden despite legal exoneration. While never expressing regret for actions necessary for survival, she acknowledged the profound impact of taking human life, even under duress. This nuanced moral reckoning, neither celebrating violence nor denying its necessity in extreme circumstances, characterized her approach to recovery. By early 2024, with legal proceedings largely resolved, Maricel and her family had been relocated to an undisclosed Western country under new identities. The evidence she secured continued generating criminal prosecutions, with over $3 billion in assets seized from Calvin's network and redistributed to verified victims through international compensation programs. Several trafficking operations connected to his enterprises had been dismantled, with key facilitators facing prosecution across multiple countries. The Golden Mirage itself, after extensive forensic processing, was sold at judicial auction, proceeds directed to victim compensation funds. Haven Island, following similar exhaustive investigation, was purchased by an international non-profit organization and converted to a rehabilitation center for trafficking survivors, transforming what had been a prison disguised as paradise into genuine sanctuary. For security specialists, the case became a cautionary study in predatory methodology, with Calvin's recruitment and control techniques now featured in training protocols for identifying high-risk employment situations. Hospitality industry associations implemented enhanced background verification requirements after recognizing how effectively legitimate business credentials had masked criminal operations. Financial regulatory agencies developed new frameworks for identifying luxury properties used as controlled environments, recognizing that Calvin's approach, using isolation and surveillance disguised as exclusivity and security, could be replicated by others. The term gilded cage operations entered law enforcement vocabulary, describing criminal enterprises hiding coercion behind luxury facades. In her protected new life, Maricel Matapang has declined most public attention, providing testimony only when essential for ongoing prosecutions. Through secured channels, she has contributed to education materials helping potential victims identify recruitment patterns similar to her experience. The foundation established with her portion of recovered assets focuses on education and economic empowerment for vulnerable communities targeted by trafficking networks. "There's no returning to who I was before," she acknowledged in confidential testimony later provided to trafficking prevention programs. "But there's creating something meaningful from what happened. If my experience helps one person recognize these patterns before being trapped, or helps one family understand how these predators exploit love and loyalty as weapons, then some purpose exists in the pain." The psychological warfare between Maricel Matapang and Calvin ended in 90 seconds of desperate violence on a luxury yacht, but its implications continue reverberating through international law enforcement, victim protection protocols, and understanding of how wealth can conceal criminality. What began as a Filipino hotel executive's opportunity for advancement became a landmark case exposing how easily ambition, obligation, and emotional manipulation can converge into carefully constructed captivity, requiring the most desperate measures to escape. As former Haven security officer Anwar Qasim, who later cooperated with prosecutors, observed, Calvin's greatest talent was making people believe they were freely choosing what he had already decided for them. His greatest mistake was not recognizing when someone stopped believing.